Kia ora and welcome to Sobriety Chat. I'm your host, Lotta Dann, otherwise known as Mrs. D. I am the community manager and content creator here at Living Sober. And today I am joined by Patti Clark, who is up north in the Coromandel, up in the north of New Zealand for you overseas folk. Patti is an author, she's a speaker, she's a workshop facilitator, she's a mother of sons, as I am, and Patti is sober. Welcome, Patti.
Thank you so much, Lotta. So happy to be here.
Oh, it's great to finally meet you face to face. I know we've interacted online, but yeah, I'm just really enjoying these sobriety chats where you get to actually eyeball someone and talk to them.
Exactly. Really looking forward to this.
So tell us a little bit. So obviously you're sober, which means you had a you have a drinking past, shall we say? Can you just tell us a little bit about your drinking story up to the point where you were close to quitting?
Absolutely. Just stop me if you need to. I was brought up in a very dysfunctional home. Both my parents drank. My mother died of alcoholism when I was 16, which was a real tough age to have that happen.
Yeah.
And I learned to numb out. Um, at an early age. I was brought up in the San Francisco Bay Area, so I had lots of opportunity to find drugs and alcohol, and I did, and I learned to numb out early on. I jump ahead. I got sober in 1988 when just 2 days before my 30th birthday. My older sister got sober first, and she took me to a couple of meetings that I said I was just supporting her. And she just sort of took me along, and I supported her. Um,
Yeah. And what was your life like at that point, in terms of your drinking and how
um,
were things? Was it chaotic or was it kind of
it was
you were holding it together on the outside? How did it look?
both. Very chaotic in a lot of ways. My boyfriend then, my husband now, and I had been traveling, and so I was able to hide a lot because we were traveling a lot. We were traveling through Southeast Asia, etc. And then we were working teaching in Japan, and Japan has a huge drinking culture. And at one point, I was drinking so much that my husband Jeff just said, "I can't do this anymore. I'm gone. I just can't do it." So he actually left. We were still in Japan, but we quit living together for a bit, and I really felt like, oh man, I've got to get a handle on this. So I made one of those wonderful agreements with my higher power. And just said, well, I won't drink spirits anymore, and I'll only have, this much, and had all of those agreements
Oh,
that I
yeah, we
that I
try
wrote down.
everything.
Yeah, I wrote it down. I was, just convinced. And then just before my 30th birthday, we were living in Oregon, and we were on our way to Arizona. And I went to a psychic, and I'll keep this short, but it's an interesting whole experience that I had. Went to a psychic, and a psychic astrologer. She did my chart, and she looked at my chart and said, "Well, this is really interesting, Patty. See this little trine, whatever here. It shows a lot of addiction." I said, "Yeah, yeah. My father's still a practicing alcoholic. My mother died of alcoholism." And she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, but this part here." And I said, "Yeah, yeah. My sister, she's now in recovery, but she is also drinking. So I have a lot of it in my family." And she just put her hands on the table and looked me in the eye and said, "Patty, are you an alcoholic?" And I just went, I had not looked at it really in that way at all. I still get chills when I look at it. And I left her house crying. I mean, I really got up and just
So
started
this was
crying.
before you quit, was it?
This was before I quit. This was like a few
Just in
days
the
before my birthday.
right.
Yeah.
So you were right at the point of so you knew the drinking was an issue, your husband was obviously struggling with it, you knew things were chaotic, you were trying techniques to try and moderate and control, which we all do. But did you know or identify then the kind of hurt little girl inside of you that had been living with all this chaos in the family
Oh,
home
not
and
yet. Not yet. That took a lot of therapy. I mean, I knew that things were chaotic, but I had done fairly well at compartmentalizing. I finished my bachelor's, I finished my master's. We had traveled. I looked okay in some ways.
yeah.
Inside I was a mess, but I was terrified to look at it. So did I know? I read self-help books, and I kinda sorta went, "Mm,"
Mm.
but it really, to be honest, Lotta, it took a lot of therapy to really get into that hurt child, um, before I was really
Yeah,
conscious of it. I went to
yeah.
my first women's AA meeting about 2 days after that meeting with the, astrologer and 2 days before my 30th birthday, and it was a group of powerful, amazing women, and I had that moment that so many of us in recovery have where I thought, "Oh my god, I'm home. Oh,
Mm.
oh, thank god." And at that point, when I started talking to more people, they talked about, "You might wanna look at some therapy and some, you know,
Mm.
adult child work," and,
Mm. It's hard though, eh? Because,
it is.
there's a we always say this, but there's a reason people drink and do drugs. It
Oh,
works.
absolutely.
It works. It does what we want. And you've already said you wanted the numbing. And I did too. I mean, there was just this tenderness there that I didn't want to touch in on at all. And
Yeah.
when you have to go through it, it's not like we get sober, we did the work, and then bing, I'm so fully
Yeah.
resolved.
Right.
Right? There's
Yay!
often really extended periods of discomfort. I mean,
Oh,
in those
absolutely.
times, was it hard to not go back to drinking?
Oh my god. I love the work of Gabor Mate, who really, holds the idea of, you know, alcohol, drugs, whatever, they worked for us until they didn't work anymore, but they
Mm,
worked to numb and hold that chaos, trauma at bay. My life was a trauma, and so I have gratitude now for how it held me until it didn't, until it shattered me.
yeah, that's
Um,
nice.
yeah, but yeah, there was a lot of work. I was really committed. I had one of those pink cloud many months when I first got sober. And I was really committed to it. And then I started doing a lot of the therapy and working on adult child and looking at shadow child and all of that. Um, and that was hard work. Um,
Mm,
I never really wanted to go out and drink again at that point, although I did later. I've told you I relapsed after a while, but at that point I was just really, there were two things. I was focused on getting strong and healthy, number 1. Number 2, keeping my relationship with my boyfriend then husband now. I mean, that was very much forefront in my mind. And I was 30. I wanted to get pregnant. I wanted to have kids, and I was
yeah.
absolutely determined not to be my mother.
Right, so that was a good motivator.
Yeah.
And so you've and I know we're jumping ahead here, but you mentioned just now that you did have a relapse, and I know this because you've shared your story with us, and I will put the link in the blog post where this video is embedded on the site so people can read that. But this is after you moved to New Zealand, right? And you'd been sober for 13 years at this point, which is a
Yeah.
huge, I mean, I'm not even there yet. I'm 10 and a half, which is a lot, but it's still, I can't imagine at 13 years. What made you decide to pick up again
Yeah.
after having
It's
done all the
all
work
that
and
work.
experienced the pink cloud and,
I know. I
and
know.
knowing and seeing for like,
It's
just,
mind-boggling, isn't it?
yeah,
There were several factors. The first one was, I quit going to meetings. That's the main one. I quit going to meetings because here in Thames, the AA group that I was with was dominated by older men who said, and I'm not blaming them, I'm really not. I take my own responsibility. But in those meetings, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them were mostly older men that said, when I would talk about feeling something or crying, they'd say, "Don't just don't pick up a drink and you'll be fine."
right, right,
A-
right, right. Squash that
and
down, squash that down. Let's not go there, but just don't pick
yeah,
up.
exactly, exactly, and
Well,
that
that's
didn't
gonna
work
work.
for me. Yeah, exactly, and so I quit going to meetings. I felt alienated,
Mm,
and I again take responsibility for this. In our little community, uh, my kids were now in school. I stayed sober while they were, until they were about, 5 or 6, and in my community, all of the really yummy mummies were
mm,
all having really good wine. They had some money. They were having really good wine on the deck
crazy.
next to the beach. And it was like, I want to be a member too.
Yeah, well, you were new to this country. You were trying to fit in. Right, I can see. So there's a lot here I want to unpick. So let's go to the first one with with the AA, and I want to make the point here because people often come to me and say, "What do you think of AA?" I went to a meeting and I hated it, and I'm always at pains to say, "Look, AA, is amazing. It's helped so many people. There are a million meetings. If you go to one and it doesn't work for you, that's not to say all of AA is bad. That just wasn't your meeting. Yours is a good
That's right.
example. You went to a meeting, it was not your meeting. It was
That's right.
men. They weren't emotionally connected. They didn't want an emotive female from the other side of the world
Which I am.
crying, right? And so there was a disconnect there. That doesn't mean, I'm always want to put this in here because it does sometimes get a bad rap, and I don't think it's fair with AA. You've
Yep,
got to find the right meeting for you. So
that's right.
that
That's
you know,
absolutely right.
and did you go on and find the right meeting for you, or what happened with
So
your AA journey
So
after that?
jumping ahead, let me just piggyback on what you said, and especially now for anybody that's out there and struggling with that, there are thousands of meetings online. You can find whatever you want. There are so many at whatever time of day or night that you want. There are meetings, and there are some great meetings.
Yeah.
So what happened with me is I was almost 13 years sober, and then I was out for almost 13 years, which is kind of mind-boggling. I'm alive and well. Um,
Re-drinking, you mean? Dri
Re-drinking, yeah, and
Ah.
making all of those, decisions, or let's have this agreement, higher power. I'll shake hands on this. I will only have, and then I will only.
Oh
All
my
of
gosh,
that.
exhausting.
I know, exhausting. I get a knot in my stomach and feel anxious just talking about
Oh, Patty, that
it.
must have been soul destroying.
No, exactly. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. Exactly right. And then what happened was, there were a few things, but mostly what happened is I was in the midst of writing my book, This Way Up. And in the book, the beginning of the book, the protagonist gets in a car accident because she's drunk, and I'm writing this and I'm doing these edits and everything. And I was meditating one day because the whole time I'm out there again, I just want you to know, I was doing the third step prayer every morning and I was still meditating. So I was fine. Okay. I was fine.
Oh my gosh, isn't it crazy what we can tell
Oh,
ourselves?
really crazy. So
Mm.
while I was doing a meditation, I just got God, I could cry. I just got this strong sense of, first of all, you're a hypocrite. Writing this book and saying these things and still drinking. That was number one. And number two, you've got to get sober again for yourself. This time, don't do it for Jeff. Don't do it for your kids.
Yeah.
Don't do it for all of those external things. Do it for you, because that's the absolute best thing you can do for you. And I quit the next day.
And was it harder the second time round or similar, different? What was
Easy. It was easy the second time around, to be honest. And what I did, Lotta, and again, gratitude to my higher power and everybody else.
mm,
A few days after I made the decision, I'm not doing this anymore, and I was sort of looking for meetings, I joined an online email meeting because they didn't have all the Zoom meetings yet. Those weren't there in 2014. Um, so I was sitting having coffee with my younger son Devin in a coffee shop in Thames, and a man and a woman walked in, and I recognized the man from old meetings. He was a friend of the partner of one of my sponsees. And in with him walked this other woman that was really cool looking, had this long, wild gray hair and this really colorful skirt. And I thought, I wonder if he's still in recovery. But more importantly, I wonder if she is.
mm.
And so while I was sitting there watching them, I just thought, screw it. And I stood up and went over to their table and I said, "Hi, Stan. I don't know if you remember me. I'm Patty." He said, "Of course I remember you. You were Carla's sponsor. How have you been? I haven't seen you in so long." Give me a big hug. And I said, "I'm really good, Stan, but I'm not here to talk to you. I'm here to talk to her." And her name is Rosie. And she is my dear, dear friend now. And I said to Rosie, I relapsed. I'm newly sober again. This is she doesn't know me. She's like looking at me. And I said, I am looking for a good meeting again. I really want a women's meeting. I'm
Yeah.
looking for something with some real emotional sobriety. And she stood up and gave me a hug and said, "Let's start one." I
Oh,
know. I know. Yeah, I
amazing.
still have chills, absolute chills. Those
Oh,
God moments when it's like my whole body just sort of whoa.
I'm yeah. Okay, I'm still getting over the fact that you relapsed for 13 years,
Oh,
but
I know. I
can we
know.
go back? Because I did also wanna pick up on the fact of the mummy drinking culture that drew you back in, and
Mm.
did you stay a part of that for that length of time? And ha has how did that go, and is that still really prevalent, do you think? I mean, I know it is because 'cause I've
Yes, it's really prevalent,
yeah.
extremely prevalent. Am I still a part of it? No. The short answer is no. Am I friends with some of them? Still kinda, yeah. I was immersed in it when my kids were still at primary school, hanging out with these kids. It was the doctor's wife and the dentist's wife and the banker's wife, and, um, and our kids played together, and I wanted to be a part of that group.
Mm.
Anyway,
Was it
so
fun? Did you connect with each other? I mean, I don't wanna paint it as all bad, like, they were probably
exactly.
lovely
Was it
people.
was it fun? Oh, and they still are. I mean, I still
Yeah,
know them well, and this is a small town. I don't think
yeah.
any of them are gonna be listening to your podcast, but, you never know.
Yeah.
Anyway, was it fun? Uh, define fun. We sat on decks and we talked shit. Sorry, I don't know how your
Yeah, yeah,
line is.
talking
And
shit,
we
absolutely.
drank a lot, and
A lot of nice
oh, God
Chardonnay,
help
was
me.
it?
Yeah, really
A lot
nice
of
Chardonnay.
nice the
Yep.
best Sauvignon you can buy,
There you go. That's it.
but
That's
you're
it.
still
Bubbles on
kind of
birthdays. Um,
flickering up and not
yep. And
really
not
properly.
connecting. And
Yeah,
and then I'd get in the car and drive my kids home. Oh God, thank you. I never got in an accident, but I did
yeah,
that. And that's let me tell you about the 4 steps on those. Um, but was it fun? Yeah, again, define fun. It was fine. Did I connect with any of them on a real level? No. Did we talk about anything of anything significance? No. I was happy that my kids were playing with kids that were nice kids, and that
yeah,
there was a shine to it. It's sunny. We're
yeah,
on a deck by a beach, and there's a shine to it, and it looks good. And yet, having had 13 years of sobriety, I knew it wasn't real. I knew it wasn't what was going to feed my soul.
yeah,
Um, but and there wasn't a lot on offer that I knew of in Thames. Um, so yeah, it was okay. It's not
it
all
did.
bad, and it was enough that I stayed out for 13 years, Lotta.
Yeah,
It wasn't like I was in horrible, stinking, yucky places. It looked good, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so advice for people, because I think I said to you before we started recording, there's a number of members, and it always happens on our site. They come back into our members feed, which is our protected kind of community area, and they're sheepish, and you can, even though they're just typing words on a screen, you can feel that they're hurting and they're humble and sometimes they apologize, but they are coming back and they are reconnecting with us, and they're saying, I'm back to day one. I've got to do this. What can you say to those people who are recovering from a relapse?
Yeah. Oh, welcome back. That's what I can say. And we're so glad you're here.
Yeah.
That because we're either recovering from a relapse, or we're on our way toward death. And I've known a lot of people that have relapsed and died. So if you've come back, yay, we're glad you're here. And there's so much shame around that. So much shame, so much
Yeah.
icky feeling of I failed and I didn't do it right. And to be honest, I think that my relapse taught me more than if I had just stayed in recovery, because I learned a lot about myself.
Yeah.
I'm able to come into meetings now and talk to people who have relapsed and say, "Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
There's a lot of shame here. It's difficult. Welcome back. You've
Yeah.
done great. You've done great. You're here.
I
Yay,
know, that's what
yay
we're always
you."
like. So good, don't
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
bad. You're just so
exactly.
pleased you're back. Talk to us every day. We're here for
Exactly.
you. I know.
Exactly.
It's just what you want to do, isn't it? I mean, we
Mm,
all get like this because we know the pain of being in that dark, boozy space, and we just
yep,
want to drag the people out of it because it is hard work being sober
it is.
sometimes, but
Oh,
it is
yeah.
the
I
payoffs
mean,
are just
one of my first sponsor said something that a lot of first sponsors say, the gift of getting clean and sober is we get to feel again. And the hard part is we feel again, and we feel deeply,
yes.
and it's true. We aren't using anything to numb out.
Mm,
So the gift is we get to be absolutely present with
Mm.
all of these emotions, and it's such a gift, and I'm so grateful. And there's times when it's just like, this is hard. And if you're
Yeah.
at all empathetic, and most of us that are in recovery are, and it's one of the reasons we were drinking and using so much,
Yes.
um, if you're empathetic, you're feeling the pain that's out there. There's a
No,
lot of pain. There's
it
war, there's
sure is.
climate change,
Oh,
there's poverty. It's
pandemic.
hard. Pandemic, yeah, in the middle of a pandemic, absolutely.
Misinformation, this is
Oh,
a really
yeah,
hard one right now. All the people that are
isn't it?
falling down rabbit holes, getting
Oh, I
sucked in.
know.
Anyway, let's not go on a tangent.
Okay, yeah,
I
we'll
wanna
go way
talk
off on a tangent there.
I
Way
do
off.
wanna talk to you about the work you now do helping others. You've written 2 books, and am I right there's a 3rd on the way?
The second book is with publishers right now, so it's not out
The
yet.
second, okay.
Um, and
And I'll
so
link to your site as well. But
great, thank you.
it seems, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the work that you're doing now with the writing and the running workshops and is really about trying to empower women and lift them up and help them get over big life traumas.
Yeah.
Why women? I mean, obviously you are one, but why women particularly, and why do you think it is that we're needing this kind of support?
That's a huge question. I started. I'll try and be brief again. I started a charitable trust early '90s, working with adolescents and teens, and that's still running, called Teen Esteem Workshops. And so I run workshops. Well, I have facilitators now that are running most of the workshops, and I'm managing most of it. But a lot of mothers came to me and said, "I really want what you're giving our kids." And
Right.
that's when I started working more with women. And then when I wrote This Way Up, 7 Tools for Unleashing Your Creative Self and Transforming Your Life, my publisher gave me the title, not me. Um, that what I was going through was with my own kids leaving and my own
Mm.
search for self, because that's what we hear so much from others, and I hear it a lot in recovery rooms too, that sort of search for self. And um, once the kids are gone, and I am
Yeah.
sort of unpacking and doing this therapy, what's me, and how to connect that. And then the second book that's coming out soon, hopefully, is called Recovery Road Trip, and it's very much about looking at recovery, coming back, and sort of, it's not a memoir, it's a narrative, but about a woman who's sort of like, okay, so now I'm sober again and I'm doing okay, but what else? Because
Yeah.
that's what happens a lot. We've been in recovery a while, we're feeling good, the pink shine wears off,
Yeah.
and now we're feeling all this stuff, and there's all kinds of stuff there. So how do we keep unpacking that and stay
Yes.
true to self and stay connected?
I mean, it's an ongoing thing, isn't it? And I
It is.
often say, and I've got a great mentor, Susie, who did one of these sobriety chats with me, who says recovery is not an event; it's a process.
Exactly.
It is that ongoing process of looking at your life and how you're doing, and it becomes less about the drug, whether it be alcohol or other drugs that you put down, and more about just life and how we live it. But I'm interested
Absolutely.
in your title of your first book because of that word creativity. Why is unlocking your creativity so key to finding happiness?
Oh, that's another huge question. We've got 5 minutes. Um, um,
Ish.
ish. The There's lots of reasons. I believe that connecting to one's creativity is how I really connect to that, to my highest self, and it's about unpacking and finding that outlet, taking sort of that internal process and finding a way to let it out that feeds me.
And
Um,
is this sorry to cut you off, but is this you have to be a painter, you have to learn
oh,
how to knit? Like what
no,
what are we
no,
talking about here?
no. The the most important book I ever read in my life, and one that I always refer back to, is The Artist's Way. Um, and I just, yeah, that was one of my yeah, most important books.
I don't think I've read
And
that one. I'm gonna write that
you
down.
don't?
The
Oh, it's
Artist's
wonderful.
Way.
The Artist's Way, yeah. And in it, she talks about she's sober. I think she's 33 years sober. And she talks about connecting to self. And she's the one that for me, I don't know if she started it, but for me, she talks about morning pages, which I still do. So
Yeah.
journaling in the morning, right when you wake up, just to get stuff out, and then to explore creativity, whatever that looks like. It's not being an artist. It's not painting a pretty picture, because
Mm.
that's what just stifles so many people, is that feeling of, oh, I can't draw a perfect
Yeah.
tree.
Yeah.
If you want a perfect tree, take a picture. That's we have cameras, we have phones.
Yeah.
What we're doing is we are letting out uh, this creative process, and that through the creative process we connect to our deepest self. We are, in my opinion, we are able
Mm.
to find that that connection to our deepest self. And you can do it through anything. I love to write. I write a lot. I do a lot of
Yeah.
creativity through writing. I sketch, not well, but when I want to get stuff out, I sketch, sometimes with two hands. I love playing with color, so I will play with paint, but in a very loose way. Certainly, no, none of my stuff
Mm.
is framed in my wall. Um, it's very much about process of letting out yucky stuff that's on a rat wheel, or just going into process where I can then connect to my higher self.
Mm.
Because just sitting and meditating, I shouldn't say just, when I sit and meditate, sometimes I have wonderful experiences. More often than not, I do not. But if I can just sort of let go of that and get into a creative flow, singing, dancing, not for
Yeah.
anybody's eyes, for me,
Yeah.
gardening, whatever that is, when I'm in that creative process, that's when I get into flow and I can better connect to that deepest source of
Oh,
self.
lovely. Okay, great. And so before we close, I'm interested to find out how you, I mean, we've kind of done this now with the creativity stuff, but what are your other go to self care actions that you can take when you're having a bad day or when something really difficult happens because, life keeps happening, right? What do
Yeah,
you do to look after yourself?
yeah. Great question. And that gives me chills. And I started thinking of all these things. But the truth is, the number one thing is connection. What I learned, I mentioned it to you very briefly, going through some codependent stuff that I've unleashed. It's like, oh my God, isn't this gone yet? Anyway, going through some codependent stuff. What I did is I connected with other crones,
Yeah,
with my sister, with my friend Rosie that I talked about, that I started the program with, that I started our meeting with my friend Tam, who I've been friends with since I was a teenager, and just sort of unpacked, talked, looked at. That's one of
yeah.
the best things I can do for self-care, is have connection. That's
Do
number
you
one.
ever do you ever oh, sorry, we're gonna go on because I
Go
just
ahead.
wanted to ask, do you ever have an instinct though that you just wanna retreat and curl up in a ball and
Absolutely,
hide?
absolutely. I mean, as I can bullet point a lot of things I do, but absolutely. Another thing I do that's very helpful for me, some people don't go there, but write. I like to just write to get things out. Take a bath. I love taking a bath
Yeah.
and just sitting in water. Water is so healing, and that's, to me, is just such a wonderful balm. Walking on the beach is a huge piece for me, where I'm just walking it out, or sitting on a rock and just being. Usually, yeah, it goes in waves, Lotta. Sometimes if
Mm,
something hits me hard, my first thing is I'll probably write, then I'll reach out and need to sort of process with someone. And then I like to go for a walk alone, or take a bath, or
yeah.
be something that's healing me. When I feel like I've got enough money and time and space, I love to go get a massage and just let somebody else nurture my
Oh,
body. But
yeah.
with COVID and other things, that hasn't happened in a
Isn't
while.
it
But
funny? See, I don't like massages at
yeah,
all. I just feel uncomfortable and
mm,
awkward and it stresses me out more than relaxes me. I
I
sort of
have
feel
a
like
good friend just like that, where she says, "Ew, you like people to," and
I've
but to
just had
me, that's,
some that I've weren't pleasurable and like yeah, it's not my thing, but
yeah,
it's about finding what works for you and that's okay, isn't it?
absolutely,
Yeah, baths
absolutely.
is a good one. Maybe I should I love getting a bath bomb dropping
Yes,
that
me
in the
too.
water.
Me too. The smell, I always yeah, I like having a candle, I like having the smell of the bath
Yes.
salts or the bath bomb. All of my senses where I'm just
Yeah, that's what I'm always saying to people. Use your scented candles, use
yeah,
your fancy lotions, use your bath oils that you got for your birthday 2 years ago. Don't just leave them sitting in the on the
exactly,
shelf. Use
exactly,
them. That is self-care.
exactly. How many of us just keep it wrapped in cellophane for that special? It's like you're special, you're really special
I
now.
know, that's right. This Tuesday when you've been feeling a bit tearful, this
Yep,
is the day that you
yep,
break out the fancy stuff and the
absolutely,
fancy china and all the rest of it.
absolutely.
Look, I could talk to you for ages, but I won't. But thank you so much, Patty. Really, really appreciate you coming on and also all the work you're doing to help others. As I say, I'll share a link to your website and your books with the new one
Hopefully
coming.
the other one's coming, yeah.
Yeah, and the workshop that you're doing, and yeah, just keep up the great work and look after yourself. Take care.
Thanks so much, Lotta. It's just been an